Let me say it as simply as I can. Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
That this man failed. We gave a black man the highest prize in the universe, and then after that we gave him the Nobel Prize for Peace, even though he didn't earn it. We gave to him everything that he needed to succeed. We gave him everything that he needed to succeed. We gave him everything he needed to lead his people. We gave him everything he needed to help black people. We gave him everything he needed to change the world and the dynamics of black people. We gave him everything to heal slavery. We gave him the presidency, and we gave him the Nobel Prize for Peace. We gave him everything. And the nigger failed.
Can you help clarify for us what is the goal? What is the administration's strategy here? Is it to defeat ISIS, to stop its momentum, to damage ISIS? What is the goal here?
The goal here, as he has said repeatedly, is to empower local actors and partners, So this is going to be a very long-term campaign. This is not something that we're going to be able to turn around immediately.
4 years ago, I promised to end the war in Iraq. We did.
So this is going to be a very long-term campaign. This is not something that we're going to be able to turn around immediately.
The fight for freedom of information has never been harder in America. So says the head of the Associated Press's bureau in Washington. She's written an article listing the main obstacles facing those trying to report without bias. She says that no one is allowed to film the bombers leaving for airstrikes. Political decisions are made behind closed doors. There's no access to 9/11 trial documents, even unclassified ones. Likewise, there's a complete information blackout surrounding Gitmo, and people are routinely scared out of talking to reporters. Politicians sidestep the Freedom of Information Act, and the administration is increasingly in control of what local and state officials call the press.
I'll make our government open and transparent.
RT's Guyan H. Jacan taking a closer look at the reporter's struggle.
President Obama promised his presidency would be transparent, but for journalists it has been anything but.
Justice Louis Brandeis once said, "Sunlight is the greatest disinfectant."
The head of the Washington bureau of the Associated Press, Sally Busby, blasted the Obama administration for the ways in which it blocks journalists' access to information. She writes, quote, "Day-to-day intimidation of sources is chilling. AP's transportation reporters' sources say that if they're caught talking to her, they will be fired. Government press officials say their orders are to squelch anything controversial or that makes the administration look bad." End of quote. The agency's bureau chief also says even non-classified material is hard to get, such as court filings in the upcoming 9/11 trial. Echoing the sentiments of many, the New York Times chief Washington correspondent David Sanger called the Obama administration the most closed and control-freak government that he has ever covered.
No more secrecy. That's a commitment I make to you as president. No more secrecy.
We can't get the story unless people who know the story can talk to us without fear of retaliation.
The Obama administration has prosecuted more leakers than all previous administrations combined. Journalists have been targeted as well. Last year, the Justice Department admitted that it had secretly collected months of telephone records of reporters and editors at the Associated Press while investigating a leak.
There's no doubt when the Associated Press, which is one of the most established mainstream news outlets, is complaining about harassment by government and by the White House and that journalists can't do their job, it really says something, because Associated Press usually has a lot of access.
The Justice Department wants to send two-time Pulitzer Prize winner, New York Times reporter James Risen to jail if he refuses to name the source he referred to in his book. The source told the reporter about a bungled CIA operation in Iran.
We think people like James Risen of the New York Times should be put on a pedestal. And the people in this Department of Justice building think he should be put in prison.
And when there's a bill that ends up on my desk as president, you, the public, will have 5 days to look online and find out what's in it before I sign it, so that you know what your government's doing. The unemployment rate is below 6% for the first time in 6 years. And we're on pace for the strongest job growth since the 1990s. Strongest job growth since the 1990s. Over the past 55 months, our businesses have now created 10.3 million new jobs. Now that happens to be the longest uninterrupted stretch of job growth in the private sector in American history. Last year, in 2011, we started reducing the deficit through $1 trillion in spending cuts. Those have already taken place. The agreement being worked on right now would further reduce the deficit by asking the wealthiest 2% of Americans to pay higher taxes for the first time in 2 decades. So that would add additional hundreds of billions of dollars to deficit reduction.
If you like your plan and you like your doctor, you won't have to do a thing. You keep your plan. If you want to keep the health insurance you got, you can keep it.
For the first time in 9 years, there are no Americans fighting in Iraq. 4 years ago, I promised to end the war in Iraq. We did. 4 years ago, I promised to end the war in Iraq. I did. 4 years ago, I promised to end the war in Iraq, and I did. I told you we'd end the war in Iraq. We did. I said we'd end the Iraq war. We did. I told you I'd end the war in Iraq, and we did. I ended the war in Iraq as I promised. In 2008, I promised we'd end the war in Iraq. We've ended it. I was able to keep my promise and end the war in Iraq. In 2008, I promised we would end the war in Iraq, and we've ended it. The war in Iraq is over. The war in Iraq is over from ending the war in Iraq. That's why I ended the war in Iraq. For the first time in 9 years, there are no Americans fighting in Iraq.
President, do you have any second thoughts about pulling all ground troops out of Iraq, and does it give you pause as the U.S. is doing the same thing in Afghanistan?
Yeah, you know what I just find interesting is the degree to which this issue keeps on coming up, as if this was my decision.
تم بفضل الله إسقاط تجسس أمريكي الصنع بصاروخ موجه في صحراء رمادي.
اللهم إن أمريكا وفرنسا وحلفاءهم اعتدوا علينا وجاءونا بجحافلهم يقاتلوننا عداوة لدينك، يمنعوننا من إقامة دينك وتطبيق حدودك والحكم بما أنزلت. اللهم وإنك تعلم ضعفنا، ما لنا حيلة بطائراتهم. اللهم قلت وقولك الحق، ولا تهنوا ولا تحزنوا وأنتم الأعلون إن كنتم مؤمنين. اللهم إنا آمنا بك وتوكلنا عليك، أنت حسبنا ونعم الوكيل. اللهم إن أمريكا وحلفاءها يكفرون بك ويشركون، اللهم وقد جعلتهم فوقنا بطائراتهم. اللهم وتعلم ما لنا حول ولا قوة عليها إلا بك. اللهم لا يكونوا فوقنا وأنت فوقهم، اللهم لا يكونوا فوقنا ونحن الأعلون، اللهم لا يكونوا فوقنا ونحن الأعلون. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك لا تخلف الميعاد، نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. اللهم ربنا لتكفينا إياهم بما شئت وكيف شئت، أنت العزيز الجبار. اللهم لتنزلنهم إلى الأرض ولتجعلنا فوقهم، أنت الملك القهار. اللهم واجعلها آخر حملاتهم الصليبية، نغزوهم بعدها ولا يغزوننا. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين، نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. فلا تؤاخذنا بما فعل السفهاء منا، أنت حسبنا ونعم الوكيل. التجأنا إليك وفوضنا أمرنا إليك، سبحانك سبحانك، نعم المولى ونعم النصير. وصل اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
This new video of a deadly battle between ISIS and a coalition of rebel groups. The coalition known as Narawan in Syria claims this is the battle and the very day that McCain was killed. CNN cannot confirm that, but we do believe McCain was killed during this ongoing battle between ISIS and other rebels. The group that released this video also released this picture of McCain's passport, along with another picture, which we are not airing tonight, that they claim is his dead body. At the same time, ISIS released this terrifying video, ISIS fighters firing an American M198 howitzer cannon. That the president is going to chair an extraordinary meeting of the UN Security Council on this threat. Can you help clarify for us what is the goal? What is the administration strategy here? Is it to defeat ISIS, to stop its momentum, to damage ISIS? What is the goal here?
Well, there have been a lot of news reports, and you're citing them here, and the president has not made any decisions yet. We're obviously developing a number of options within the administration, and those will be decisions for the president to make. But the goal here, as he has said repeatedly, is to empower local actors and partners to defeat this organization and to ensure that they cannot have territory and sanctuary that would threaten U.S. interests and our allies. So this is going to be a very long-term campaign. This is not something that we're going to be able to turn around immediately.
And our children and our grandchildren are unable to pursue their dreams because they're saddled with our debts. And that's why today I'm pledging to cut the deficit we inherited by half by the end of my first term in office. And as president, I'm going to make it impossible for congressmen or lobbyists to slip pork barrel projects or corporate welfare into laws when no one's looking, because when I'm president, meetings where laws are written will be more open to the public. When there are meetings between lobbyists and a government agency, we'll put as many of those meetings as possible online for every American to watch. When there's a tax bill being debated in Congress, you will know the names of the corporations that would benefit and how much money they would get. And we will put every corporate tax break and every pork barrel project online for every American to see. You will know who asked for them, and you can decide whether your representative is actually representing you.
And the nigger fell.